Hey everyone, welcome to sunny Florida. Um, I'm in my in-laws lanai as they call it,
Yeah,
otherwise known as a
actually,
porch. And
it's
I'm
snowing
down
in
here.
Buffalo. It's snowing in Buffalo. Thank you.
It's snowing about that. All right, well it's 70 degrees here,
Well, it
Mike.
doesn't mean
Yeah.
he has to suffer just
So
because it's
yes,
snowing by you.
right. So a quick side story here. So my son, as you guys might know, is he does two things for a living. He's 16, but he does two things that have both actually become for a living. One is puppeteering stuff that he does, which is really fun, and the second is he's a naturist. So he does nature conservation and works with different extinct species and stuff like that, and puts up trail cams and researches them.
So
So
is he searching for the Florida Panther again?
Right, he is. And yet, so weird. That means I'm searching for the Florida Panther again, Mike. So, okay, so yesterday, the two of us drove 3 hours down to Big Cypress National Park and went down there, and we're putting up trail camps. Now, it's the wet season in Florida down there, so the water is really high, which means that the alligators are everywhere. Okay, so like wherever there's water, there's alligators down there. We saw one that was 15 feet long. I saw the biggest alligator I've ever seen in my life. It was 15 feet long. It looked like it had just eaten a smaller alligator. It was so wide and round. It was unbelievably big. It was so crazy big that one of its bottom teeth. We took a picture. It was really far away from us, fortunately. But he zoomed in and took a picture of his mouth. One of its bottom teeth had gone through its top of its mouth, and permanently there was like a permanent hole that was just there. So how nuts is that? So anyway, this is like.
Well, you know how you know you're too close, Zach, when you're within like 20 feet, 30 feet, because they can run twice as fast, three times
I know.
as fast.
Fortunately, he was on the other side of a river, so we were like there's a river between us. We felt pretty comfortable. Okay, so, but that was that point. There's another. Well, it didn't get so comfortable later. That's my story. So we're hanging up one of our trail cams in this area, and we're gonna monitor that. So I'm the one who he's got this long pole like you hike with, but it also on the other side of it has an electric taser. Which is because you can actually we have to take that out with us because when we have our rattlesnake guards on our legs when we're hiking so that we can't get bit. I'm serious. This is how this is. Yeah,
I'm out already, Russ.
There's some you're out already. Yeah, so
I'm out already.
I might as well go to Madagascar. Like, why am I?
No, really. It is.
You have less of a shot at getting bit by a rattlesnake there too.
I know. There's all kinds of poisonous snakes trying to kill you. It was nuts. So I'm putting this thing around the tree, and I'm like picking the safest one I could find. Like there was water on the other side of the tree, but not on this side of the tree. I'm not going until we're not going in the water, even if it's like 5 inches of water. We're not going in the water. So I put it around the tree, and I'm pulling away from the tree, and then we see like this. We see the bushes right next to it, right, and I'm like, we're both backing up really fast, thinking that this is a snake, and then it just stops. I'm like, okay, that was weird. We don't know what it was, but we don't see it. We don't see the animal. So then. We try to look a little bit closer. We've got our taser thing. We've got I'm holding a snake thing. We got our guards on. We're anyway. And then we hear woo 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 woo, which is the sound of a pissed off alligator, and that's that. And it sounds like it's as close as I am to the screen. It sounds like it's right really in front of me.
I thought somebody was going to play Who Let the Dogs Out.
I know. It goes. It's like really like. The way they get alligators to calm down is they play tubas. Believe it or not, you can play a tuba, like woo 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 woo, like on a tuba, and it'll calm alligators down.
Except so anyway, they're making that like 30 pounds. I'm not carrying that.
Yeah, I can't run.
No one knows how that solution was discovered. Like who was out there one day on a boat?
It probably was somebody on a beach that was playing at someone's wedding, and there's an alligator, and he gave it a shot.
Music soothes the savage beast, right?
So not having a tuba and not having a tuba on hand, we were kind of like, okay, what are we going to do here? So we just start walking away. We're like, oh, we're getting out of here. We're going to walk away. They say don't run from, just walk away, right? So we turn, and as we're turning, we hear what sounds like someone has thrown a small car into a pool, like a big splash. We hear this big splash. This alligator had just like that was mad at us, had obviously just left the shoreline from the other side and come into the. We didn't see they camouflage so well, so we take off and run. Exactly what you're not supposed to do. We just take off and run. We get back to the car. We're fine, but it was an unbelievable experience. Just like totally.
I wouldn't get out of the friggin' car. I'm sorry. No.
I know, but the cameras there now. We're gonna go to see. We did hear panthers. We didn't see any panthers yesterday, but we did hear them. Which is really cool because the Florida Panthers.
I'm up for a lot of stuff, but
we heard panthers, but
I would never do it. I mean, the closest I did
this was nuts.
We
had two trail.
You can't. Okay. We were at a Hyatt hotel somewhere in Florida that had a nature retreat, and on the walkway was like a bobcat. And the fact that we could see the bobcat, he could see us, that was enough for me. That was enough nature at that point.
Yeah,
Right.
If I go to the beach and there's one too many seagulls, I'm leaving.
Well, the bobcats aren't scary. I mean, cougars aren't scary. They won't go after people.
But you don't know
Famous
that.
last
It's
words
8
there,
in the morning.
Right.
I know they might. I mean, I know some runners have been attacked by them, but for the most part,
Have you ever seen crocodile?
You're never going to see them. I mean, we walk in the Florida Panther Preserve and never see them. Okay, like the actual preserve of 200 square miles or whatever it is that that's fenced in. So there's 35 panthers in there. We never see them, right? But you don't worry about the panthers. You do worry about alligators. Alligators want nothing. If they get big enough, you are definitely their prey. Like you are. There's no question about it that you can. And the ones we saw yesterday were I don't know if it's COVID or whatever, or people not being down there, but the alligators have grown to sizes that are resemble like a small like a pacer, like a pacer car, like the old pacer with the bubble back. That's the size of the alligator. Anyway, there you have it. All right, so that's my story. But I'm alive, and we only put one of the trail cameras down, so we have one more to do. So who knows? We'll see what happens. But we're gonna go to a place that's not as scary, hopefully, for the second camera. All right. What's the date, anyways? The 29th, right?
Maybe.
Right. Hello, it's Wednesday, December 29th, 2021.
I'm Michael Crocodile Dundee Agello.
I'm Jan Levine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday, filling on the comings and goings in the hockey world, even during the Christmas break. So hopefully, if you're not at work now or whatever, if you're home,
I'm always at work.
We're always at work. That's true. We're always at work. We're gonna have to. Russ, you got some kids over there today, eh?
Nah, not me.
No, that's Kev.
Oh, it's Kevin. Cool. I was like, Russ, when did you have children?
I still don't know of any.
Yes.
We're all good.
I'm up in northern Michigan, not the Upper Peninsula, but in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula, and I'm up and I've got two of my grandkids here. So hopefully, one of them's much like Cindy Lou, who is no more than 2. She's 22 months, so. She could wander in babbling about this or that. And,
it's all cool.
Yes, at that age, they realize they have vocal cords and they decide they want to test them.
Yeah, but she got up this morning at 5:30, and her and I had long discussions about her monkey. So I'm well versed on what's up with her monkey. So if we want to get into that, we can. There's a lot of drama going on with
There's
that.
no hockey going on, so hold on that story, Kev, because you never know.
For the monkey.
Well, we got to talk about what happened at the World Junior Championships.
Yes.
There's never been anything that I can remember quite like this. And we all know how good Bob McKenzie is at his job, and he did a terrific, I thought, report on what this kind of all means. And if you weren't paying attention yesterday, essentially the USA had to forfeit by a 1-0 score to Switzerland because they had 2 players, a goalie and a forward, who tested positive. Now, it gets troublesome from here on in because they're going to be tested again today. Now, as Bob pointed out, and this is one of the great ironies, if it turns out that the only other positive people are the roommates of those affected, that would actually be the best outcome for USA.
Right.
Because then those 4 could be isolated and USA could play Sweden the next game. If anyone else tests positive, then it goes to the medical committee and it's up to them to decide whether they can play or not. And the likely outcome is they're not going to let them play because they're going to have to look after the safety of the Swedish team. And so if they don't play the next 2 games,
they're out.
It's likely they're going to have more players test positive. It could be out. The other thing that Bob brought up, and all the years that I've paid attention to the World Junior Championships, I've never heard this before because it hasn't been a factor. You have to end with at least 8 teams playing in order to have a legitimate World Junior Championship. So if this spreads, we could end up playing this for naught. If we got to the quarterfinals and there were only 7 teams left, it's not a championship.
Well,
I've
On
never
that
heard
note,
that, so
right,
that is
Corey
interesting.
Proman just tweeted out saying, hearing there may be a COVID issue with today's Finland-Czechia game. The issue, I believe, is with the Czech side. So
Oh, boy.
this thing is spreading.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing that was interesting about as it evolved yesterday. So Bob McKenzie reports that the 2 players are positive, but at first he's saying that the game would be postponed because if they could reschedule U.S. and Switzerland later in the tournament, that they would have done that. But it was basically impossible for them to do that, which led to the forfeit. Now they play Sweden, I believe, tonight. It's supposed to be tonight.
Yes.
McKenzie reported that they'll get the testing in from today by 4 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 6 p.m. And
Right.
if there's no further positives, then they'll go ahead and play. And if, as you said, Kev, if the report is that only the roommates are positive, then they could play. But if it's other people, then they may be done. And that's
Right.
that would be a shame because they won last year. You would like to see them be able to defend their title and try to repeat, but that may not be possible if this spreads.
Yeah, that's a tough thing because they've never repeated. It would be an amazing thing just to be able to try. And
Yeah, right.
if they can't get to do that, that's
But even playing with 17 players, or whatever they're going to be playing with, it's going to be like hard to repeat as it is.
yeah.
Right?
McKenzie's saying there is going to be another forfeited game, so it's probably the Czech team, the Czechs. So
By the Czech game.
Czech is probably going to have to
Let's
forfeit.
throw out like a practical solution to this. Not like a practical solution, but a practical thing that maybe they should consider. I mean, all these players have played with full cages for the most part in their most of their career, right? Or different situations like that. Or
But
like
that's not going to do it.
I know, but I'm talking about like why not? Why are we giving these guys full plastic shields? Like like the full.
Because they can't breathe. That's why.
But people play with them. People play with them all the time. And they are. Of course, you can breathe, but it would at least maybe help. Like, does that? I mean, when we wear masks, when people see people wearing those face shield type things, I mean, is that so crazy?
Heck, I can't work out in a gym with a mask on. How do you expect these players to work?
But players,
You're not a world-class athlete, Michael, and they are.
Yes,
and
I
do have a solution. There is one solution.
Not a solution, Mike. And I don't think it's a solution, Russ, but I think it's like a.
No, I mean it's an idea. I don't know if you could do that. I don't know if the players, they're not used to it, and so I think with the cardio and everything, it could be a problem.
And vision wise,
I have one solution. The only solution would be if they decide to have no fans, then they could reschedule these games to any time, and they would be able to complete the tournament. But then they wouldn't be making any money.
I think it's too far.
And you
gone.
also impact.
It's not too far gone.
Hockey and everything else has an impact as well.
Sorry.
Well, they could still make money.
The junior, everything else.
No, but you could still keep this. I don't think it would take any more time. I think you would be able to wait an extra day here, wait an extra day there, and you'd be able to play 2 or 3 games a day in each place. It's not like.
But what I mean,
you don't have to worry about a crowd.
Kevin, you're saying they can still make money. Kevin, go ahead.
Well, they can't. I mean, they have a TV contract, and as long as they're televised,
Oh, there you go. That's true.
Yeah, so you'll be doing okay. But with the issue with the mask, the only thing I would say about that, and again, I shouldn't even bring this up, but I read that some of the experts are saying the cloth mask doesn't do well against Omicron. So that's why they're advising everyone to get the 95 mask. So I'm not sure that even going to the shields would help you too much. But
I can tell you, in the hospital where I am visiting somebody every day, they do give you the cloth mask. They give you the 2-ply one, and that's it.
But
disposable.
What I'm saying by it being too far gone is if you have positives on Team USA and now positives with the Czechs, that means it's too far gone. It's already in locker rooms. It's already so eliminating the fans. That's no,
but then you have more time.
I know, Russ, but what I'm saying is it's like putting a travel ban in for South Africa after Omicron is already in North
America. No, it's not, because
it's more about scheduling. It's more about scheduling.
It's more about scheduling, Mike, and the scheduling would ease up then, because then they could fully get these teams clean or enough players to be able to play. And again, they have 2 rinks to work with. They could finish it.
Well, one thing is this: that the Rogers Place, the Oilers facility, and they scheduled in a block of time that the World Junior could play. If they went to that, they'd probably have to play all their games in Red Deer because that LD building is going to be occupied by the Oilers in about a week.
Well, I think they could still do it in the allotted time. What we're basically saying is, if you read the McKenzie stuff, they had to expedite just to get testing done by like 6 o'clock tonight for a 9 o'clock game. If you're not worried about a crowd or anything, you could reschedule the whole schedule.
I mean, I hate to say it, but the real problem here is, and we've heard about this with NHL teams going into Canada, is the testing in Canada is too damn slow.
That is an issue. I've heard that from more than one person.
Yeah, I mean, NHL teams were testing in the U.S. and flying same day into Canada for their games, and that's why there were some cancel or some postponements of games into Canada because they just simply couldn't get the testing in time. So, I mean,
NASCAR has an interesting point, but this would have had to have been done before the tournament. They could have built out the benches so that players are more separated on the bench, but that would have taken time to do beforehand. The Oilers may not have wanted to do that, but I'm just saying that would help ease the problem.
Yeah.
Can I
it
bring
feels
up
like it's the locker room, right?
It probably is.
Probably is.
It's locker rooms away more closed in area. It's like feels like like the bench at least you're.
I mean, they could put everybody outside except it's minus 40, so you can't.
Can I bring up fun? Can I bring up a non-COVID issue that I have with the World Junior after last night? And I get it. It's been this way since time immemorial. And seeding in the World Junior is based on goal differential. When you have a game like Canada-Austria, which to me was a friggin' embarrassment, the Canadians had 63 shots on goal on the Austrians. The goaltender, I felt sorry for that kid after the first period. You could say, well, the team doesn't belong in the tournament. No, they belong in the tournament, but you have to admit that there are teams like Canada, the U.S., and Russia that are going to run up the score on those teams because the goal differential is a determining factor in terms of seeding. How about capping goal differential? How about saying, if you win, the most you can get is +7.
I agree.
Let me bring this up.
I'm in favor of that. Good idea.
Kevin, you and I have done soccer tournaments in our time, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that, right? Like when you've done soccer tournaments where you see like the most you can win is by you can score whatever you want, but the most you're going to get is a +5 or what have you.
Right.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
You also make the Canadian players have to pass to each other before anyone takes a shot. That's other things we do in soccer.
I mean, it was 6-0. It was 6-0 in the middle. It was 6-0, I think, after 2, and then the Canadians they had 5 goals in the third period, and it was honestly. I mean, you can't have mercy rules like in softball, but I do think that if you cap goal differential, then I think at a certain point those superior teams will just cool your jets. We've got the lead. We're gonna win. We're gonna get our 7 goals. Don't go further than that.
I will also say that people have been crazy about Connor Bedard. He's not having a good season. Maybe he won't be the number 1 pick. Maybe he won't be this. He scores 4 goals against a team that is brutal. And now it's like, hey, he's done things that Wayne Gretzky hasn't done, or he's done things that Connor McDavid hasn't done. You see all these posts, and it's like, listen, can we just understand that this game was a walkthrough? It really was. By the second period, that Austrian team was worn out, and Canada was just only trying to set up spectacular scoring plays, or otherwise they were sort of like not trying to kill them. But then it got to the point where they couldn't even compete anymore. Like they just couldn't even skate. And it's like, so I don't want to take away from Bedard and say that he's not worthy of that kind of talk. But right now he's not. And I don't want to think any more of him because he scored 4 goals in the game, because it really wasn't a game.
And the thing is, Kevin, we're concentrating right now on the 2022 draft as we get, we're 7 months away from it, and Bedard and Mishkov, the Russian kid, are 2023. Everybody assumes that right now, and I think they're right, that Bedard is going to be the number 1 pick in that draft. And probably the reason why is because Mishkov is under contract in Russia, like Kaprizov or like Kaprizov. He's going to be under contract until he's 22 or 23 years old. So I don't know whether he'll even be the 2nd pick, because who's going to want to wait 3-4 years for that guy?
Well, yeah, yes and no. Like, I mean, I think you may make a decision if you're at 1 or 2, but he's not going to go
No.
too far down just because,
No,
you
but
know,
like,
as
if it gets to the Kraken, I think the Kraken would wait.
well, you know, all you got to do is look at our Kaprizov from Minnesota, and you know, there's two ways of looking at it. One, you don't get them right away, but you know, the Minnesota just waited it out, and they ended up getting a polished player
Yeah.
who stepped right in and suddenly was among the top players in the game in terms of, you know, how dangerous he is.
But all right, Kev, I'll ask you the question: if the New Jersey Devils are picking in those top 2 picks, do you think they're doing it? I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to wait. You know, I think what we could see is some discussion about trades too.
That's true.
Because somebody would like that. I mean, if you're a contending team and you got a chance to get a player that you're not going to get, you know, what would you give up to get that guy because you can afford to wait? So, I mean, I think it'll just add a little intrigue to the draft because there'll be just some discussion about what'll happen. You're going to have to make some real difficult decisions. I think what Mike is saying is accurate because a lot of teams who are in that position can't afford to wait, you know, 3 or 4 years. But you know,
but the teams that can afford to wait 3 or 4 years are the contending teams. You know, like you know, I'll use Colorado as an example. They could make a package to a team that is at the top of the draft, trade for a pick like that, draft that guy, and they could wait 3 or 4 years because they're good right now. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So Eck, I don't know if Eck's frozen here. I think he might be.
Oh, he is frozen.
He is frozen.
Yeah, as far as the World Juniors, we'll see what happens. Maybe there'll be a game tonight with the U.S. and Sweden. Maybe they won't. But Kevin's right. One more day of this, and the whole tournament could be in trouble.
Yeah, and you know they maybe they should have delayed it. You know, maybe of course there's Monday morning quarterbacking here, so we don't.
The viewpoint is last year, so they figured they'd get through this year.
That's what it is.
They're having
they
fans
went with last year's assumption for this year's virus.
But and the other elephant in the room, you know, they canceled all those other tournaments.
Oh yeah.
But they played the one where there was money involved. So you know, I mean, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to get aboard that train. That you know, this one was about the money.
Yeah,
right.
And there were places that said, "Oh, we'll host the World Women's Under 18," and there was no response from the IIHF at all. So they're just not interested in playing it because it would probably with the profit margin for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, what we're seeing right now, I mean, this is like they're going to survive this if they survive it. You know, like this is not going to be a tournament to end all tournaments because it feels like they're trying to survive it. You know, like they're trying to get through it. And that sucks, you know, because it's such a great event, and especially now with no other hockey going on, we really could use it, and it's fun. I mean, it's still obviously when the games that we're watching are still great fun for us fans. You know, if you're not paying attention to all the COVID testing behind the scenes and all this crap, it's still a fun thing to watch, right? So,
well, let's shift gears here because Russ and I were talking on the show yesterday. We talked about it a little bit, but we wanted to get Kevin's input on this and. The Brad Marchand tweet regarding the Olympics and participation in the Olympics and the response to it. Now everybody's read it. Everybody has heard what he basically said, and then we saw Larry Brooks responding, which I thought was a pretty sharp response because what Marchand was saying that, and I got it wrong when I first read it because I thought Marchand was referring to. Taxi squads going to Beijing. He was talking about having the teams continue to play the schedule while the NHL players were going over to Beijing. It's sort of like what I suggested, that they would make up the games during the Olympic break with teams that were without their stars. And Larry Brooks said, well, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, Marchand doesn't give a crap about his team going 0-7 during the Olympic break while he's over in Beijing. Who's paying his salary? It's the Bruins. It's not Canada.
All right. Counterpoint, because I wasn't here yesterday, and then I want Kevin's opinion on this too. Counterpoint here, this is not, I mean, I agree that this is kind of crazy, especially for a team like Carolina, but who has 10 guys there, right? But this is not uncommon with soccer, right, Kevin? Like this happens.
Yeah.
Like players who are getting paid a ton go to play for their country in the middle of seasons.
Yeah, but I don't know. This is a different situation. I'm not supportive of that idea, just because the unfairness of it. It's really uneven, and how it was going to be. And I know some people have pointed out how many teams, as Mike just pointed out with Carolina, and there are other teams who are hit particularly hard, and some teams not hit hard at all.
Right.
So I think given the number of games that would have to be made up, I mean, we're at 80 now. Like that's not, before when we were talking about, would we get to 50 and everything, 80 games is a lot to make up. So, I think Larry Brooks is right on.
He is right on. And Kev, the other thing with Marchand, because I was harsh with Marchand yesterday, and I'll just basically say one thought that he left out on purpose. And that thought is, the players were in charge of this, and somehow he didn't mention the PA at all. He put it all on the league.
Yeah,
and this is where I have Jan. This is where I had the problem with the statement that came out, because the NHL, the statement was a joint statement with the PA, but the NHL basically took the hit. They said because of the scheduling, players are not allowed to go to the Olympics. It wasn't like the PA said, we agree with this because it's going to adversely affect the NHL schedule and our ability to get 80% of our salaries with the 20% going to escrow. We simply cannot go to the Olympics. They didn't take the hit, and they open up themselves to this chatterbox Marchand and his, discontent about not being able to get another gold medal. Like, he's already got one. Did you need another one?
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say about it all. Like, it's not. I think it says something that Donald Fear has said nothing. That I think his absence of words. I think they got together, and as Steve Yzerman said before he stepped on his landmine and said that maybe asymptomatic players shouldn't be tested, he said, there's no right answer here. So we keep looking for a right answer, and one doesn't exist. And we're all just sitting around trying to sort it all out and do the best we can. I think the proper approach is the one that Dylan Larkin took. I mentioned before that I used him as one of my indicators of what the players were going to do. When Dylan Larkin, who's a very popular player among Americans, said, well, I'm starting to hear there are a lot of players who are concerned about it. It's the quarantine, it's the issues. I said to myself, they aren't going. Because Dylan would not have talked like that had he not known that there was a good chance to go on. Now, the reason I bring that up is this Monday we got a chance to talk to him, and he told everyone he was going to go, quarantine or not. He wanted to play for USA, and he was very professional about it. He basically said that this is a decision that had to be reached. Everyone discussed it. We came up with the best thing we could come up with, and we decided not to go, but I wanted to go, and I was willing to go. I think that's the approach we got to take here. I think everybody did the best they could. They kicked it around. The NHL did not want to tick off the players. For sure. I mean, he didn't.
But Marchand didn't send that out, Kev, to basically go along with everybody else. He wanted to make this statement for the loud players that didn't want to speak out. And you know what? Again, they left out certain things. So again, it was disingenuous in my eyes.
Yeah, that's my point as well. That the best approach here would be everyone just to say, raise their hands and say, I may not agree with it, but this is the one we came. He took it the other way. Some other players have come out and said, the league, this is the league doing it to us again. Alan Walsh, who I like a lot. Not a lot of people do, but I do. But he did come out and criticize Bettman for this, and I really don't think this is anybody's fault.
I'd like him if he hadn't blocked me on Twitter. But go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, but there's something I don't think anyone is really talking about, which is that the NHL. And having covered the lack of strikes and all those things in depth, that was when I really was talking to the NHL the most, the thing about on a daily basis and everything. I've learned one thing about them, and that is, and I talked about this before, they don't like to make the players look like villains. They, no matter what, even in those lockout situations when they were battling them back and forth, you very rarely heard them say anything about the players are being spoiled or what. They'll never say anything like that.
Well, because the players are the product. The players are the
No, they
product.
realize the players are their stars. They're willing to take the heat for things like this because they know that. They know that if someone hates Gary Bettman, and which a lot of people do, Bettman's fine with you. He doesn't want you to hate Connor McDavid. Bettman would rather you hate him than hate Connor McDavid.
That's fine. But if the players know that. Well, wait. But if that's fine, if the NHL doesn't want to, is okay with being the bad guy and they want to keep their product clean, that's fine. But the players should know that. And Brad Marchand, if he doesn't know that, should learn that that's going on. And if he does know it, he should shut up.
Mike, I said it yesterday. We complain all the time that athletes give very perfunctory answers and don't give the way they feel. Marchand is expressing the view that I'm sure that a lot of players have, and he is willing to put his face to it. May not have covered everything, but I'm sure he's not the only person that has that view. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are disappointed with not going. And you know what? That he is expressing the view that some of the others do have, whether or not we like it or not. Look, the NHLPA clearly was in lockstep with the league. There's no question there. He may disagree with his Players Association, and that's his right to do so. We may disagree with his view, but at least he's expressing it as opposed to just towing the company line, which would probably be even worse. What do you want? I mean, look, he's disappointed. Look, Stamkos is disappointed in not going also because he can't play. We talked yesterday. McDavid's disappointed because he can't go. Guys who want to play with Kane are disappointed they can't go. But the problem is I don't see another viable solution here.
He blamed the league. They did.
Yeah, but you know what, Russ? I talked to somebody yesterday about this, and they at the NHL, and they're like, well, "We love it." It's like Brad Marchand.
I get it.
Would you expect Brad Marchand to agree with us? Would you expect Brad?
Fans don't know that. Not every fan knows that.
But again, I think some fans enough people will know that. And also, look, the league came out when we saw Bettman's press conference and him saying, well, this was negotiated into the CBA. It was fairly clear what the league was thinking. I mean, they made it very clear that they were not in favor of going.
And did he say that while he was twisting his mustache? Because that's what like Marchand is like, well, that evil son of a,
right.
Gary
Bettman. I think people do understand, fans understand that Marchand has a long history with the league regarding suspensions and that he doesn't feel he's been treated fairly. And so I think they're capable of factoring it in. And Jan makes a good point about, we do criticize athletes for being vanilla. And Brad Marchand is not vanilla. He's pistachio. And sometimes we got to let him kind of do his thing. And Eklund's right about the league understands that they can't be too critical of their stars because they're trying to sell them. And like I brought up the other day, it's no different than when you parent and you tell your kids, if you need to use me as the bad guy, feel free to do that. My wife and I use that many, many times.
All the time.
He's not pistachio, Kevin. He's pumpkin pie ice cream.
For Russ, he's pumpkin pie.
Yes. But I will say one thing, Kevin, I am a little surprised that Donald Fear has not really said anything at all, right?
But again, I think that's telling that he hasn't said
right.
Yeah.
But I think that's awesome, and I think that goes along with Alan Walsh. And like, listen, the NHLPA and the NHL did come across this together, but they don't want to be buddies. Like Fear doesn't want to appear. Fear does not be like I am total friends and hold hands with Gary Bettman and say we are not going to the Olympics. And Alan Walsh, the kind of agent and kind of way everything Alan Walsh is totally calculated. Everything he does. So understand that he's calculated in this statement. He wants to be the counter culture. He wants to show that we're not too friendly with the NHL. He's afraid that the agents are getting too friendly with the NHL. This is all about we're not going to be able to negotiate a good deal if we're this friendly with the NHL in the future. That's what's happening there.
Yeah, and let's not forget to factor in that Donald Fear represents a pretty diverse membership where they don't always agree. I mean, it's always like complicated when they go into and have to be the representative for the guy who's having a hearing with the NHL because they also represent the victim.
Right.
And so it's always kind of messy. And I'm sure they were well aware that they had players who wanted to go and players who were concerned about it. They also have to worry about, like this concussion issue. I remember specifically Sidney Crosby, who I know pretty well, was during the playoffs. There was an issue about whether he should have played, whether that somebody called down. And, he basically called several of us in and he talked to us about it. Says, is there anyone who knows more about concussions than me? Like he said, I'm pretty up to date on this. Like I understand that. And he was bothered a little bit about people trying to tell him, how to deal with a concussion, because he worked real hard to sort of understand all this. And there are a lot of guys that feel like him. So the Players Association often is in a position to try to have to protect players from themselves a little bit, because some of them have, differing viewpoints about how, especially regarding medical issues and everything. So, my point of all that is this was complicated for the Players Association as well, because they were trying to deal with some guys that wanted to go, some who didn't. That they wanted to make sure that the revenue was strong, so it's in their best interest that we get an 82 game schedule. There were a lot of factors in this that everybody tried to do the best they can, and whether or not they ended up with a good solution, I don't know the answer to that. They don't know the answer to that.
But Kevin, you're right. And do you think it's any easier to get 32 million / billionaire owners to agree to let them go to the Olympics? I mean, what Bettman did there is equally incredible. Like that to me is like another thing, like, because those guys, first of all, they don't agree with everything either. They are, and when you're a billionaire or millionaire, you got some opinions. You've developed some opinions along the line of what's right and wrong. You kind of think you're always right because everything you've done is pretty much worked out pretty well.
But that was the bitter pill that they were prepared to swallow to get a CBA that was very beneficial to them. So,
and that's what Gary told them, and that's what Gary said. Listen,
there's one more thing that doesn't get talked about here, and the players aren't going to be honest enough to talk about it. And Donald Fear is staying quiet because of it, and that's basically they need to make the money on the season. They want to make their money, but then they want to pretend that the Olympics are just as important, but the money is more important. And nobody is going to come out and say that, but that is the truth.
Now we
money is more important to some, but what's ironic about that, Russ, is the money is more important to the players not going to the Olympics than the ones going, because the ones going, and that's where the issue is with that. That's the.
But let me ask you this. So, and I'll ask Kevin this. So let's say they came up in the offseason and the NHL took a hard line and said, listen, if you're going to play in the Olympics, you have to sit out the season and forfeit your pay. Would Brad Marchand go to the Olympics then?
Not a chance in hell.
I think he would.
No, I'll tell you why. $7 million.
Yeah.
No
I'll tell you why.
way.
I'll tell you why I think he would. And you guys think I'm crazy? Marchand, the reason when he came out and I read this thing, I'm like, well, he is one of the people who by far has the most interest in going to these Olympics, because he is an absolute Olympic legend, right? With like Sidney Crosby and Marchand, the whole thing of it is something that definitely he takes as a very, very valuable part of his life.
He bleeds red because he's from
one more
Canada.
time to say that I'm the Sidney Crosby. I was on Marchand and Sidney Crosby won another Stanley Cup together. I think that matters to him probably more than another $2 million.
I don't care how much money he's made in his career with the Bruins. He's not giving. I think he's making $6.1 million. He is not giving up $6 million to go to Beijing.
Nope.
Not a chance in hell. No,
the ego is a pretty big thing, and Marchand has a small ego.
Would he give? What the question is? Would he have given up if the NHL had left it open for players to say, okay, we're gonna go. You can go. You just have to forfeit your pay for 2 weeks.
He would do that.
That's $80,000, $90,000, something like that. He'd fine. He's not giving up $6 million.
No.
Now, there's some
I don't think
breaking
that's either, but I think there is a definite amount of millions of dollars that he would give up half the season. Maybe there's a point at which he would think about it, because this does matter to him.
Now, there's some breaking news here. Frank Cervalli just reported that the NHL is officially shortening the isolation period following the CDC guidelines. This is what the NFL is doing. This is what the NBA is doing. So they're shortening the isolation period to 5 days. The thing here is with a negative test. That's the thing. It's some players after 10 days, they're still testing positive. So this is like if it's asymptomatic and they're negative. This is
big. This is big. This is really big, because that 10-day thing was causing a lot of the issues. For example, here in Detroit, Lucas Raymond, who's their fine rookie, he wouldn't be eligible to come back for Friday's game. Now, if this is immediate, I think he'll be able to play. He's he's testing negative and asymptomatic. I don't know that for sure, but
no. Toronto
5 days from the negative test, like 5 days from your negative test, or what is it?
No, isolation period shortened from 10 to 5 days, and then if there's a negative test, then they're available. Then
and I'm sure that negotiation was because of the variant that the Canadian government has by compare to kind of give a little bit more of a strength to the protocol and the policy.
And that's a real life approach as well, because I know, and those of you who kind of follow me know that I've had to quarantine with 3 grandchildren in Chicago, and in Chicago they've gone from 10 to 5 as well. So the length of period that when the classrooms get wiped out by one positive COVID experience, everything. So I think the NHL is just following.
I mean,
I can tell you something that's astonishing. Being down here in Florida yesterday and being down like in the Everglades, where and I was in some pretty big markets, but really sort of out of the way places. My son and I were saying everyone knew we were from not there because we were the only people wearing masks in the stores, like at big stores in Florida. It's a totally different world. I mean, it was astonishing to me how right anything goes. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I was different everywhere in the country.
I was on the Zoom. I was on the Zoom call yesterday with the Leafs. They had, as of then, they had 14 players who had been in COVID protocol. Some were coming out and practicing after 10 or so days. Most of them that we talked to, the symptoms went away after 24 hours or 48 hours. So it's like it wasn't something that was lingering. Only one had the classic symptoms of losing taste or smell. So the Omicron variant in general, what's been talked about is that it's milder. Now that's not going to be the case with everybody, but I know that that flies in the face of a lot of people right now. But I mean,
milder if you're vaccinated.
We could do that if they don't come in contact with any other people, but hospitals are full. The hospital that I'm visiting is full. And that is the problem, is there's still a general public and other things to consider. You don't want the hospitals full during the whole season for the NHL just so they can play. That's wrong too.
If we can, just for the possibility of perhaps preventing this from becoming an all COVID show, I have a little subject I just wanted to bring up, and I think it's kind of fun, although it's kind of disappointing as well. That I wanted to bring up. I read a story in USA Today about Wyoming. Now this is going to become commonplace, but they were the first. I believe it was Wyoming. Now that I say that, and they essentially put out a press release where they turned their quarterback position into a almost like a job posting. Essentially, what they did is, as everyone may know, in the NCAA now, of course, because of lawsuits and stuff, now has to be open for players to get financial reward for playing in college.
Right.
And they were the first school, at least according to USA Today, to essentially just spell out in their press release that they needed a starting quarterback. They're going to look in the transfer portal, and here's what it pays. And they listed all the places where you're going to get money. Now, as USA Today pointed out, that's going to be commonplace now. If you're the Ohio State quarterback, you can expect to get this and this and this and this. And so Wyoming did it and saying, we don't have anyone on our roster. We have an opening. Whoever we get is going to be our starting quarterback, and this is what you're going to get.
And they're going to have Josh Allen probably as the spokes guy because he went to Wyoming.
Well, whatever. I guess that doesn't matter. But I thought about it just in terms. Now, obviously, hockey is not football. However, could we get to the point in college hockey, because there are some programs with some pretty well-heeled alumnus.
Sure.
That some school could put out there, hey, for our top 3 recruits, we have this available for you if you come here. This alumnus is paying this. This sponsor is going to give this amount of money. Like I saw the LSU quarterback. It was a real funny bit, actually. It has a deal with one of the fast food restaurants where he gets all the food he can eat. And he has to go 3 times a week there, and he gets a $500 allowance for his teammates. And the question was to him, well, that must go pretty good. He goes, well, not if I take my lineman. That doesn't last very long with linemen. So anyway, Russ, what do you think? You're wired.
No, I think it could happen. I do.
Yeah, I thought so too.
It's within the rules.
So
it would. Let's just say we know college rivalries. I mean, we know Michigan is, like with the group of players that they have right now, they're going to be the odds-on favorite to win, win the NCAA championship. Who's to say that Ohio State doesn't want to beat their rival, and they'll go out and their boosters will offer lots of money to get the 3 best prospects out there to join the Buckeyes hockey team. I mean, that's definitely
Notre Dame. That's Notre Dame, Cornell, Notre Dame. These places that have a lot of people come out of there with pretty good money.
I don't want to come off sounding negative. I actually was very supportive of this because I think we've taken advantage of college athletes, and there are some good that can come out of it. I saw another piece about there's a guy that has a Power Bar energy drink company, and he at Brigham Young, he's giving every member of the Brigham Young team $2,000 as long as they're shown on their social media drinking and eating his products. And this is even more important, he's giving full ride scholarships to every walk-on who makes the team. So I mean, it could be very, very positive deal. Now they're going to be able to utilize that in their recruiting, but this is a good thing. $2,000, that's walking around.
College student, there's a heck of a lot.
No.
Yeah.
Just Venmo their daughter like $200 in the middle of the night. It does matter a lot.
Keeping with the college hockey ranks for a minute, Kev. So the other day, Michigan canceled against Michigan State. That's the number 4 in the country. They have 5 guys in the World Juniors. Plus, they claimed a couple of other injuries. Now they do have 1 person in COVID, and they canceled the game, which angered obviously Michigan State and a lot of college people.
Yeah,
that's going to keep happening if players go to the Olympics. And I think now that this is happening, I don't think the players are going to go to the Olympics. They might get one a team or something. They might say, take your pick of one of these guys. We can't let all of these guys go, though.
Yeah, I have the impression they're going to have, again, I'm reading, no one has told me this directly, but reading based on all the little information, there'll be 3 or 4 college players. There'll be half a dozen American Hockey League players, and the rest will be from Europe.
Okay.
That was sort of the outline that I think they were attempting to do.
Now, last night we had 3 games in the NHL. I was so desperate for watching hockey that in the background I had Canada, Austria on, and I was watching Montreal and Tampa, which was actually like Laval versus Syracuse. But it was actually an exciting game. Tampa Bay winning 5-4, and Vegas beat LA. I think it was 6-3, and there was a wild game between San Jose and Arizona. But we're not even at the halfway mark of the season. But I know, Kevin, you wanted to talk about sort of reassessing some of the Stanley Cup favorites, and I think that you might have to take a look. And I'm not being unfair here, but the Islanders are no longer a favorite.
Yeah, no, I that's exactly what I wanted to bring up. Coming in, everybody was high on the Islanders in terms of, we had seen them the last 2 years. They're a team built to play in the postseason, and sooner or later, a bad start becomes who you really are.
Yeah.
And right now, that's who the Islanders are. So, and the other thing is I discounted, and maybe this was wrong of me, but I discounted the Lightning. Like, I had so many qualifiers on the Lightning. Well, it's just so hard to win 3 in a row. They've lost so many guys, and you just can't do it again. Everything's going. But you look where the standings, and they're the number 1 team here. They are just doing it.
And they got Point back yesterday, and Kucherov will probably be back in less than a month. So they weathered the storm, and they came out of it
with Lagasse in net. That's not easy to do.
And they're going to add someone crazy like Evander Kane. They're going to add a right shot defenseman. They're going to figure it out. Julian Brisebois does a great job. So I think in my mind, till further notice, they're the team to beat. And the other thing too is, I think Colorado, when you look at their last 5 or 6 games, and then you look at how many goals they're scoring per game, I think they're my 3rd team, and then I got Carolina at 2 right now.
And Landeskog is coming back this week. He's back, I think, the next game also.
But the Western version of Tampa is the Vegas Golden Knights. Okay, they've been without Pacioretty for a long stretch. They've been without Stone for a long stretch. They had all the slew of injuries. Chandler Stevenson's playing like a number one center, and they haven't even gotten Eichel back, and they're first in the Pacific.
Yeah, one thing I would say though, the reason why I'm hesitant now, I've got them obviously in my teams that can win it, because they can, is Robert Leonard has not had a good season. I don't think.
No, not great. You're right.
I think he's been average. He's been a little up and down for me. So I need to see how he's going to perform. If he's good in the second half, you're absolutely right, Mike.
But Brossoit's a good goalie too.
So yeah, but I don't think
If they're going to win, it's going to be Leonard.
I don't know about that.
I think it's going to be Leonard. I don't see them making a change.
It's easy to say that, but again, who would have said? I mean, we would have been having this conversation back in the day with Carolina and say, if they don't win with Martin Gerber, they're not going to win.
Hey, maybe they're going to trade Leonard to Chicago for Fleury.
I'll give my three. My top two stay the same. Florida, Minnesota. That is the same for me. That was the same for preseason. My third will be Vegas, because I do think if they get Eichel back and with that goaltending tandem, they are going to be very hard to beat. They've got a couple of lines that are really, even Chandler Stevenson's playing the best hockey of his career. They've got a couple of lines that can really kill you offensively and defensively, and they're big and they're tough.
My top three are Tampa, Vegas, and Colorado, but I have to say that I think the field is about 8 teams. And we were talking about this yesterday, and we can talk about it on a future show. Like we talked about, like the contenders in the East and what those teams need to add
Talk
to.
about that tomorrow.
Right. We'll definitely do that. But what it's like I think Tampa very well, Kev, could do that. They could add a defenseman. I don't know if they're going to be willing to take on Kane unless Kane comes at 25% of his current salary, which they might be able to arrange with some other team. But
a little called Steve Yzerman.
Yeah, there you go.
So
he's got a lot of cap room to fill. Sure, and I'm sure it'll cost them probably a Boris Kachuk or a Taylor Radish or some good young player, something like that, and a first round pick. And we know Yzerman can turn that into gold. But there's no reason not to give Tampa the consideration of being the team coming out of the East right now. I think there are 3 or 4 teams that could challenge them. If Toronto gets a right-hand shot defenseman, they're right there. Florida, I think, needs a defenseman. I think Washington probably. I think they need a goaltender, but I don't know if they're going to get one, Russ. But
I agree with that, but I still think Florida beats Tampa if they face each other. It was really close last year. I think they can get over the hump this year.
Well, the only path in the East for a team like Toronto is to win the division and have Tampa and Florida face each other 2-3 in the first round and have them kill each other. Otherwise, a team like Toronto, if they face either one of them, they probably lose again in the first round, and then it's Tampa versus Florida in the second round.
Say that. You never know.
This is what I would say about Florida and Tampa, and you've heard me discuss this many times before. One thing I've learned in covering the league a long time that is it's never absolute. We always want to say, they're going to win or they're not. To me, I always look at it as you play 10 times, what would happen? And I think we're at with Florida and Tampa Bay. I think we're at a 5-5, 6-4 thing. I think that could go either way. I think Florida's capable of beating Tampa. I'm with Russ on that.
My team gets to face them tonight with all their stars coming back. So yay for the Rangers. Barkov is back.
I feel like there's some holes.
Huberdeau's potentially coming back.
I got to be honest too. I love the Rangers. I think they're a real.
They were my team to win the cup. They're still my team.
They need a third line center. They need a top 6 winger, and they probably need one more blue line. But they also have $10 million in cap room where they can go ahead and go on.
I think Shesterkin, gives them a comparable goalie to Vasilevsky. I think the key for them is if their younger players really start to come around too, then they're
and what they do at the deadline.
Yeah. Well, that goes without saying because they do. They have a lot of cap space, and it's going to be interesting. But I really like the Rangers quite a bit.
They're my first team. Rangers are my first team. My second team would be probably Vegas, honestly, even though I thought Vegas was going to struggle to make the playoffs. I'm starting to be impressed by what I'm seeing. And then with Eichel coming in, I think they're going to be trouble.
It just seems like the majority of those teams that need that one player to add to improve their chances. It's either a defenseman or a goaltender. And if you look past Sherratt, maybe Klingberg, I don't know if Dallas is going to trade him or not, probably not. The market for defensemen is not very deep. And that's why Sherratt probably ends up getting a first-round pick in a trade, because he's like probably the best of the left shot D in this market. And that's why I don't think the Islanders are going to trade their first-round pick when they're going to be in the top 6 or 7.
I didn't think so either, but like I said, I talked to somebody yesterday, and I wrote about this yesterday that said that discussion is definitely ongoing with the Islanders and Sherratt. And don't ever count out. I mean, Lou is not getting any younger. It's not like he's going to sit there and rebuild a team from scratch.
Well,
he's taking
unless he's winning the games. Unless he's winning the games himself, it's near impossible. Nothing's impossible, but it's near impossible.
And they're not so far out that they're dead, guys. They aren't.
But okay, and maybe take it from maybe we're biased against the Islanders, but like Russ and I had an online discussion with former hockey buzzer Dan Petru and Noel Fogelman, who are Islanders followers and fans, and they basically said it's time to retool. I mean, if Lou can go out there and trade one of those $5 million forwards for a $5 million mobile puck-carrying defenseman, then that's what helps this team.
All I can say is, talking to somebody very close to him, I don't get that impression at all.
It's just hubris. That's all that is.
Yeah, I don't think he, basically, I wrote a column about this a couple of weeks ago. Lou Lamoriello doesn't give up. 78-year-old defensemen or 78-year-old general managers don't retool.
Right.
So, I think he's going to wait it out before he gives up that first-round pick. But I think
knew Chara was old. I didn't know he was that old.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, he's still in on. I mean, he's in on Sherratt. I just heard that he's definitely.
He's in a wait and see mode. He wants to see where this team is at in a couple of weeks.
He definitely has to do that.
I know that for sure.
Right. I think they played 25 or 26 games. If they go 12-3 and they're within 10 of a playoff spot, then yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where they are. No.
What I was told is Lou doesn't think he has to do anything right now. He just needs to wait and see where they're at. I
agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't told that.
But honestly, of the 8 contenders out there, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow, the Edmonton Oilers are not one of them. They are not one of the top 8 contenders. I have 5 contenders in the East and 3 in the West, and they are not one of the 8 contenders in the NHL. And Ken Holland is going to have to do some major reshuffling. He needs a defenseman and a goaltender.
One more thing about the Islanders, because after their game with the Sabres, whether it happens, I'm pretending all these are going to happen.
Yeah,
they're on the West Coast swing. How well are the Islanders going to do on a West Coast swing right now?
Right now, it's not a bad thing for them. Honestly, they've had so much trouble.
I think it's horrible.
I mean, they've had so much trouble at home, and there's such a different situation. I think it's possible that they do pretty well out there. I really do. And I'm not. Listen, if I was them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm saying. I'm hearing they're doing, but that's what I'm hearing they're doing. So
if they're not scoring goals on a West Coast swing, it could get bad.
Well, and one of the things that's come out of this shifting of games with the Canadian teams. This is only acceptable because Montreal is basically done and they're out of it. They're not going to play a home game until January 27th because
that's true. It's only one West Coast game. That's right. I forgot the others are Canadian. Never mind.
Yeah, January 27th. And by that time, they're hoping that the Quebec government allows fans. Winnipeg has now. I haven't looked at their schedule and they haven't shifted any of their games, but right now they're at no fans for a game. Right. That's why the Leafs moved one of their 3 home games at the beginning of the month of January. They postponed that one because they're only 50% capacity. When it comes to big money teams like Toronto and Montreal, the gate is like $2 million for every game. So that's the reason they're moving these games out until later in the season when there's 100% capacity. So
hopefully. Yeah. I mean, I mean, there's so much unknown, but it's worth a shot if they have the ability to do that. It seems odd that you can cancel games now with all the games that are being canceled without your choice. I mean, like without that you can postpone a game now when games are being postponed on their own. I think playing in front of no fans would have been a better idea for both those teams, just because
it's the bottom dollar here, Eck.
Oh, I know it's the bottom dollar, but like you say, those teams aren't going to go bankrupt by not having fans in there, and they could end up in a situation where they're playing so many games at the end of the season that they run out of steam for the playoffs. That's possible. And I think that more important to them is how far they can go in the playoffs, right?
I still don't know if they can finish the season. I'm still saying somewhere around 70 games.
I mean, Kevin,
don't know if they
I
can finish
think
the
they're going to go hell or high water to get 82. I can't imagine that they would cancel the Olympics or cancel the participation in the Olympics, and then you want to raise the ire of the players.
Yep.
Cancel
they're
the Olympics and then not get 82
yesterday
games.
they told me yesterday they're playing 82 and they don't care how late they go in the summer. They don't care how late they go in the summer
Well,
with the
they
playoffs.
do. If that's their take, then that makes sense.
Yeah, that is their take because they've
Okay.
proven they can go into the summer and
If they can
let's
go into
on.
the summer, then they will.
Done it before, and in summer hockey the ratings weren't terrible. Like they weren't.
No, that's fine. I just didn't know if they were going to upset the whole thing again to do that. If they are, then yes, they can get it done.
Brad Marchand would go through the NHL offices in New York with a machete if they didn't finish 82 games.
One thing I would bet is that the draft doesn't happen when it's going to happen. I think the draft is going to be pushed back. I think the UFA days.
No.
No,
That's
it
gonna
probably
happen.
will get pushed back.
That's inevitable. I think that's inevitable.
Yeah.
I do.
There's
All
a
right, that's all
chance.
the time we have for today, guys. Thank you, everybody, for getting this in. We appreciate it. We know everybody's traveling in different places. Thank you so much for watching, continuing your support of the Hockey Buzzcast.
One more little thing. Rest in peace, John Madden.
What is that?
Rest in peace, John Madden.
Yeah.
There you go. I like it.
That's
All right.
sad. Yeah.
Be safe. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. And thanks again so much for watching. We will talk to you then. Enjoy your day.